Hey guys, welcome back. We are going to continue our discussion. My lecture is on investments, loans, and other bank functions. So this is actually chapter 4, and if you are going to go over the general banking law, you can read there about the functions of the different classification of banks. So let us first begin with universal operation of universal banks. So what are the powers of universal banks? There are three. First is that of a commercial bank. Second, that of an investment house. And third, investment in non-allied enterprises. So equity investments of universal banks. Allied enterprises are those which enhance or complement banking. Okay? Allied. No, the complement siya sa banking. We call that one as allied enterprises. Second, if it is a financial allied enterprise, then it involves money matters. Otherwise, if it does not involve money matters, it shall be non-financial. Total investment in equities of allied and non-allied enterprises shall not exceed 50% of the net worth of the bank. Equity investment in any one enterprise, whether allied or non, shall not exceed 25%. Net worth is the total of the unimpaired paid-in capital, including paid-in surplus, retained earnings, and undivided profit. That's the net worth of the bank. Equity investments of Universal Bank in financial allied enterprises. Universal Bank can own 100% of the equity in a thrift, rural bank, or financial allied enterprises. So, pwede ang Universal Bank makauna siya 100% of the equity of a thrift, rural, or financial allied enterprises. Publicly listed universal or commercial bank may own 100% of voting stock of another universal or commercial bank. If not publicly listed, then only 49% own. Following are the financial allied enterprises. Please take note of this. Leasing companies, okay? Banks, investment houses, financing companies, credit card companies, financial institutions, companies in stock brokerage and foreign exchange dealership, insurance companies, holding company, provided that the equities of the entity is confined under Universal Bank BSP regulation. To move on, we have equity investments of Universal Bank in non-financial allied enterprises. Universal Bank may own up to 100% of equity in non-financial allied. Examples, warehousing companies, storage, safety deposit box, companies engaged in management of mutual funds and not funds itself, computer services, home building and development, service bureaus, kanang mga credit bureaus, kanang PCHC, the Philippine Clearinghouse Corporation. Rural and cooperative banks can invest in non-financial allied enterprises such as warehousing, fertilizer and agricultural chemical, farm equipments, trucking and transportation, marketing agricultural products, and leasing. That is the only for rural and commercial cooperative banks. Equity investment of Universal Bank in non-allied enterprise. Equity investment in a single non-allied enterprise shall not exceed 35% on total equity or voting stocks. What are the investments in non-allied enterprises? The universal banks may invest in equity of enterprise of eligibles. First, enterprises engaged in agriculture, mining, quarrying, manufacturing, and public utilities. Can also invest in non-financial enterprise, non-allied enterprises on industrial parks and commercial project with a government privatization program. So, pwede ang bangko, anak. Especially the universal banks. Equity investment in quasi-banks. Universal bank can only invest up to 40% of equity of quasi-banks. Okay? So let us proceed on the powers of commercial banks. Of course, general powers incident to corporations. So, under the revised corporation code, pwede na niya ito ma-apply po sa bangko, commercial banks. All powers necessary to carry business of commercial banking. What does it include? Accept deposits, accept draft, and issuing letters of credit, discounting, credit, creating demand deposits. They can also buy and sell foreign exchange or forex. So, issuance of letter of credits. Okay, functions of commercial banks. What is a letter of credit? Okay? Letter of credit means a financial device developed by merchants as convenient mode of dealing with sales of goods. So usually this is a negotiable instrument. The buyer will apply for a letter of credit in the issuing bank. The seller will then send the goods to the carrier, and he will make a draft called bill of exchange. Okay? Mangayar siya og letter of credit gikan sa bangko. Tapos ang seller ana mupadala na siya, send the goods to the carrier, and he will make a draft. We call that one as the bill of exchange. Seller will present the draft and the necessary documents such as bill of lading to issuing bank in order to receive the payment. While the goods are in transit, it shall be owned by the issuing bank. O katong iyahon nga gi-issue nga bill of exchange. While the goods, the letter of credit rather. While the goods are in transit, the letter of credit is owned by the issuing bank. When the goods arrive at the port of the buyer will pay the corresponding payment and also gain the documents. Since the buyer gained the documents, he can now acquire the delivered goods. So, in independence principle, bank determines compliance with letter of credit only by examining shipping documents presented and need not to examine the goods. So, there are three contracts here. That of the buyer and the seller, that of the buyer and the bank, and that of the seller and the bank. So there can be the other parties such as notifying bank, thus inform the seller, confirming bank, lend credence to letter of credit, paying bank and negotiating bank, or the discounter. So we also have equity investments on commercial banks. Commercial banks may invest in equities of allied enterprises. Total investment in equities of allied enterprises shall not exceed 35%. Equity investment in one enterprise shall not exceed 25%. And they can even own up to 100% on equity of thrift and rural bank. However, they cannot own 100% of equity of financial allied enterprises other than the thrift and rural bank. Equity investment in commercial bank or non-financial allied enterprises, they can own 100% enterprises. So, let's proceed on the risk-based capital. Minimum ratio of risk-based capital, it's the monetary board that will prescribe that ratio. Actually, I'll just be sending you the circular pertaining to this. It will be based on the net worth and risk assets of a bank as well as its compositions. It may alter compliance with ratio for a maximum period of 1 year. Ratio shall be uniformly applied to banks of same category. So, this is based on the CAMEL standard. Effects of non-compliance. Of course, bank does not comply with the IMB, limit distribution of net profits and be used to increase capital accounts under the minimum requirement is net. So, wala mo na dividendo. Kinahanglan atoong abton ang atoon nga capital accounts minimum requirement. Next, restrict acquisition of major assets and new investment except with purchase of readily marketable evidence of indebtedness of the reverse purchase agreement of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. In case of merger, rehabilitation, MB may temporarily leave such bank with compliance to that capital ratio. So, we also have the single borrower's limit. Total amount of loans, credits, accommodation, and guarantees extended to any person, partnership, or corporation shall not exceed 20% of net worth of bank. Okay? 20%. Di good pwede nga dako kay siya og single borrower's limit. In Circular 425 of 2004 of PSP, the SBL was increased to 25%. So what are the exceptions of the single borrower's limit? May be authorized, prescribed for reasons of national interest, kung nanginahanglan gyud ang gobyerno, deposit of rural banks with the GOC financial institutions, and such as the Land Bank, DBP, and the Philippine National Bank. But right now, PNB is already privatized. Okay? So, that's all for now. We will continue discussing pertinent to this administration of banks in our succeeding videos. That's all. Thank you. This is Dr. Greg Bakay again, and stay tuned for more video lectures in our subject Philippine banking laws. Thank you.